So now we're going to take back a bit and talk about the GameObject, who all of the previous attributes that I've been talking about before have all been doing public virtual inheritance from. Again, all the documentation, all sorts of just jolly goodness. Okay, this guy has the usual scene entry, or well, he has the two functions that correspond to him: submit entry, submit exit, scale, rotation, and position. Those are the two unique ones, or the three unique values that it forces them to have. Friend class, the GameObject eternity, and the eternity for his commands. Which, I'll close all these guys up. So GameObject, boop, boop. He's got his normal command, pointer to the GameObject, disconnect from scene. Oh yeah, exit entry now instead of, yeah, they're slightly different named. Connect to scene. Excuse me, sorry. Which will go into the normal scene registration broker, boop, execute commands. This guy is kind of unique in the fact that he is designed to be used for the other, to enable the other systems to work. So, we'll start closing some guys. For the player, all of these other guys have to be done in scene entry and scene exit. This allows smooth in and out behavior of the object. So I submit entry when the player here is first created. Not exactly the smoothest thing. He'll submit entry, which puts a command into the scene registration broker, and at the top of the next frame, at some point that command will be called. He'll call the scene entry, which then basically announces to all the other attributes it's time to go. They all submit their commands, and next frame they all start being used, which will keep going on and on and on until somebody calls this guy, which again, die function, submit exit, which will then put a command into the scene registration broker, and then on the top of the next frame he'll get used, which he calls the scene exit, and he tells everyone party's over, and they all deregister themselves, and they will not be called on for the rest of the frames. Then, of course, he cleans up his own memory. So, this is most interesting on the enemy bullet. Actually, we'll do player bullet because it's easier to just show it being spammed. So, player bullet. When I create him, I set his collidable group, set collidable model, yada yada yada. This I am so sorry, my headset went out at some point. Or, not at some point, I heard it just a second ago. Okay. Okay, so back where I was talking about with the player bullet. So, on its default constructor, it sets collidable group, set collidable model for the collision, yada yada yada. But now it's initialize, which initialize is what I use for pooling. He has a scene entry, where he submits everybody. His update, his draw, alarm 0, and his collision with the player, both of which can call die, which in this case literally just submits exit. When that happens, they will tell everyone the party's over, and recycle the bullet. So, to make this more explicit, we have the player bullet factory, which will create bullets, recycle bullets. I assign current player just so when I do any sort of initializing, I can tell them who they are and where the player is, which makes it easier because the player owns his own score. So essentially the enemies tell the player, hey, add my score. Which is for game logic, and that way if the player dies or changes scenes or anything, I can still cleanly reset these guys. So whenever you call a command to create a bullet, you go to the pool, which will get a pooled object, which if it has one, it'll just give you an old one. Otherwise, it'll call it the default constructor, create a new guy, pass it, you initialize him, you tell him to submit entry, and the storage wrapper, which is the live bullet list. That's the constant time removal where you get a pointer to where he's stored in there. So, and then, as you saw earlier, when he gets to the end of his scene exit, he tells to the bullet factory to recycle himself. So live bullet list.remove, which removes him from the live bullet list and puts him in a bullet pool. And I have this function just in case, which I haven't had to use it for this. And then again, pools clean up their own memory, so I don't need to worry about that. So I just need to go to the live bullet list and delete all of the guys that are still alive, and of course delete this actual object. So, to show this in practice, we will put the default constructor, will comment him, on the player bullet, to make this stupid obvious that he's being reused. Okay, so I press space. The default constructor player bullet was called. Oh, stop shooting me. Alright, so I pressed it twice. So now there's 2 bullets out in the scene. Oh my goodness. Oh my. I'm sorry, I put a space. See, I can keep reusing those 2 existing bullets. So the reason why this works is because when they hit the end of their alarm... Oh my, I'm sorry. It got upset with me with putting a space in the document. So he can either die from a collision or die from the alarm. Which I'm just going to use one for now just to make it really obvious about which case killed them, because it gets a little funky. So the first guy here, he'll die. Yeah, they have a stupid long lifespan. Alarm 0, he died. So he goes to submit exit. Then he finishes it. And then at the top of the next frame, he'll clear all this stuff out. Now we're back here, and we can shoot him again. It's the same bullet, but now he collided with the enemy tank. So he goes to die, he submits his exit, and at the top of the next frame, he submits his exit. So, go back to the game, go back to that game. Oh, wait. Oh my goodness. I will exit the game. We go to the bullet factories, now it's being terminated, and the bullet that we just created is also being destroyed. And it all closes out. I'm just showing that, again, it does look all cleaned up. So I just had one bullet that I used for a collision with the player, a collision with the alarm, both of which use the same exit just fine. At the very end of the game, when I pressed escape, when I go to scene demo, which is the enemy bullet factory, terminate, it will destroy all the bullets, and it will... Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Once the terminate's called, it destroys all of the live bullets, and the pool will also destroy all of its live bullets, which is a little funkier to explain, because it's templates, which, in their destructor, they just destroy all the memory that they currently own. Which is, yeah, new T. It's the default constructor I was talking about.